When Doors was released, it caused a huge stir and went viral. Hundreds of thousands of players online, tons of YouTube videos, and a massive fan base. In short, it was a success. The reason was simple. People had never seen such a stylish, polished, and well-crafted horror game in Roblox. Copycats were inevitable. Parodies emerged but couldn't match Asterisk Doors' success. They were simply lackluster in comparison. However, the team at Urban Shade decided to create their own project, and after nearly 2 years of hard work, they developed Pressure. When I first heard about Pressure, I thought it was just another attempt to shamelessly copy Roblox Doors. But how wrong I was! As soon as Mario completed the game, I knew I had to make a video about it. I haven't seen such quality execution since the release of Doors itself. So grab some tea, prepare your snacks, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything exciting. I'll tell you where the developers drew inspiration from beyond Doors, the lore behind the game, and the creatures in this underwater complex. Let's get started. And we'll start with the fact that I believe 70% of the entire game was inspired by Doors, as the core gameplay is essentially no different. You open doors, move further through the complex, explore locations, and run away from monsters. But as they say, the devil is in the details. For example, here, just like in Doors, there's a puzzle room. Yes, only one, but here it's more complex. In Doors, we just had to rearrange paintings, which took at most 15 seconds, but here the developers have come up with a more interesting puzzle. In Pressure, just like in Doors, there are many different rooms and spaces, but the developers thought that was too boring and added underwater locations. Do you remember that pressure in this game isn't fatal and people can splash around freely? Well, you'll spend almost a quarter of the game underwater, which adds a fresh touch to the gameplay. I really like how the creators cleverly interwove everything and play by their own rules. But there's one thing that completely differs from Doors, and that's the story, which revolves around the scientific military group Urban Shade. In the 1960s, they built an underwater laboratory called Hadal Blacksite. The unique feature of it was that the location of the lab was anomalous. And despite the enormous depth, the pressure wasn't lethal, allowing them to construct a secret base. In the laboratory, Urban Shade conducted experiments to create super powerful creatures and soldiers, but many of these experiments led to unpredictable mutations. Besides the scientists, Urban Shade also employed prisoners, or rather, they simply served their sentences there, and then, on one not-so-pleasant day, to the horror of the entire staff, one of the prisoners sabotages the lab, releasing all the monsters, turning the laboratory into a dangerous and abandoned place where most of the scientists either died or fled. We take on the role of a prisoner who is given the chance to prove himself by doing something useful for Urban Shade, retrieving a crystal left in the very center of the lab. With it, the company can regain control of the facility, and in return, we will be granted freedom. That's roughly how the plot starts. In my opinion, it's worlds apart from Doors, where we are given no information about where we are, what's happening, or what our goal is. And if the first part of the video was dedicated to the Doors-like gameplay, the second part focused on Pressure's unique story, and the next will be a fusion of both, monsters. The most default and frequently recurring monster is this creepy angler, a copy of Rush from Doors. But don't be fooled, the developers at Urban Shade have tweaked it a bit. While in Doors, Rush only appears in rooms with wardrobes, in Pressure, Angler can sometimes spawn where there are no wardrobes. This means you'll need to run back to the previous room to find cover. At first, this annoyed me and my friends a bit, like, why is he here where there's no place to hide? But then we figured out the trick. By the way, speaking of wardrobes, before hiding, check for a purple glow. If it's there, you'll be grabbed by Void Mass. When playing solo, that's a lethal outcome, but if you're with friends, your HP will slowly drain every second until you die. To survive, a teammate needs to pull you out. But don't think we're done with Angler yet, because it has a few variations. Blitz only differs by its extreme speed. Pinky is more dangerous since you can only detect it by sound. The lights don't flicker when it appears. Frogger, while creepy, just runs back and forth, so it's better not to leave your hiding spot right away. And lastly, there's the Chain Smoker, who slowly walks around, releasing smoke that fills the room, forcing players to leave the wardrobe sooner. Mr. Lopi teleports the player if they fall out of the map or lag too far behind their friends. The Man from the Mindscape, another jump scare type monster. It has a 1 in 500 chance of appearing. Wall Dweller is a bit more interesting. This concrete humanoid creature is excellent at camouflaging itself with the local flora. This inhabitant likes to sneak up behind players and instantly kill them, so make sure to look around often, as eye contact from any player will scare it away. If the Wall Dweller dies, for example from an angler passing by, it drops a piece that, when eaten, grants a passive HP regeneration effect. Remember the eyes from doors that you can't look at? Well, here it's the same, but in the form of a shark with eyes. This eyefestation looks amazing. I can only praise the designers for it. It has a chance to appear in any room with large windows. When the player is in its line of sight, the camera will constantly turn toward its eyes, and you'll need to resist to avoid taking damage. The best strategy is to just look down at the floor. Good people. This monster can appear in rooms with multiple doors, and as you might have guessed, one door is the right one, while the others are not so much. You can tell which door hides the good people by the sounds coming from behind it, like breathing and other creepy noises. Pandemonium, this is probably one of the coolest monsters in the game. It looks a lot like the Angler, but there's a little twist to it. I want you to see and experience it for yourself.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, dude!
Pandemonium, it literally feels like a fight for your life, a comment that perfectly captures my emotions. So, we've covered the main monsters, and now it's time for what I call the background monsters. Sticks can appear when opening a door with a 1 in 500 chance. It will only scare you and doesn't deal any damage to players. Do you know where the original texture of this monster comes from? Be careful, it's really creepy. Next up, we have what my friends and I nicknamed Squidward because of its similar name, Squiddles. It appears in dark rooms and stays quietly in place until someone shines a flashlight on it or gets too close. When it attacks, it takes 30 to 40 GP from the player. This monster has 8 variations. There are also some Easter egg versions, like Rush from Doors or Trollface. Next comes a not-so-dangerous monster. Painter is an old computer with crudely drawn smiley faces on its monitor. It performs several tasks. It randomly activates turrets and makes them target players. Yes, there are turrets in the game, but their mechanics are pretty simple, like they just don't hit, and that's it. Additionally, this computer can lock us up for some time with an eye-covered shark, and warns the player about the fishing rod monster. And the last monster is Parasite. They inhabit water, often in dark places. If they attack you, just swim towards any light source and shake the camera. Otherwise, you'll gradually lose health. Well, that wraps up the main monsters. Of course, there are also some Easter egg ones that I haven't mentioned, but I don't want to stretch out the video too long because those guys don't really affect the gameplay much. For example, there are randomly spawning trees and people sitting in chairs. They don't do anything and just stand there. That's it. Now let's move on to the points of interest that we'll encounter along the way, apart from the regular rooms. The shop. It appears between doors 48 and 52. You can access it through a vent, though it's hard to spot, but you definitely won't miss it, because an unknown voice will call you. Waking up through the vent, we find ourselves in the shop and see Sebastian in front of us. Yes, it's the same figure we constantly see after each death, and he is the main antagonist of this game. Sebastian's story is rather sad. When he was still human, he was falsely accused of killing 9 people and sentenced to death, but the guys from Urban Shade quickly stepped in and altered the death report to drag him into their lab, where they conducted experiments on him, and as a result, this is what he became. Oh, and by the way, it was Sebastian who sabotaged everything by releasing all the monsters into the wild. In his shop, we can buy all sorts of items: flashlights, batteries, medkits, lockpicks, and flash beacons. You can even use the ladder to annoy Sebas. The second key location in the game is the warehouse. To pass through this area, you need to repair the electrical panels. The number of panels depends on the number of players. The main thing is not to get caught by that strange flying shrimp. After the warehouse, there are various rooms, like the server room or an underwater location with a giant walker. It's a very atmospheric place. By the 100th room, we reach the main goal of the game, the crystal. But don't celebrate just yet, we still need to escape. After the 100th room, the player enters the ridge. This area is much more dangerous since the lights are off and monsters appear more frequently. At the 115th location, we need to make a final push and repair the wires underwater to open the exit. Those dragonflies again? Once we reach the dock with submarines safe and sound, we escape this cursed place and see the ending screen. In short, we successfully completed the mission. We were thanked for the job and told not to spread too much about what we saw there, although no one would believe us anyway. The end. So what can I say? This game, if not better, is at least on par with Doors. Though, considering the lore and style, for some, this parody might actually be better than the original. To be fair, Doors isn't exactly original either, and is based on other games. but that's absolutely fine. Getting inspired by and even imitating successful ideas is okay, as long as the end result is a unique and interesting product. And that's exactly what happened here. Where the developers got their ideas from or where else they can be found isn't that important. So I recommend the game. But if you don't want to spend your time playing it, you can watch the walkthrough from Mario All Games, which is already available on the channel. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please support it with a like and subscribe to the channel. See you soon in the next videos. Bye bye everyone!